Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're just landing here. I'm a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. Apologies to you all. I didn't make it on Friday. Typically, I post on Fridays, but I got called to grandma duty. And so hopefully, you understand that, and glad to be back with you today. Couple of things I want to take a look at, you all. And also, while I'm thinking about it, please, I'm going to do a post, but I want to be more responsive to a lot of your direct questions around, political questions. So please feel free in the comments, drop me some questions. And then when I do my reading on Wednesdays, I usually post Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Then I'll address as many of them as I can. I'd love to hear from you and welcome that, because most of the time when I get on and read, I just get prompted by what my guides want me to address, and so. But I want to hear from you as well. So feel free to drop a comment. I'll get to it. All right. That said, a couple of big things happening this week. Want to take a look at the government shutdown, the prospects for a government shutdown. We know that. Orange, just let's call him Orange today. Orange is slated to meet with House and Senate leaders Mike Johnson and Thune, as well as Jeffries and Schumer, whose private meeting got canceled, we know, but apparently it's the four of them who are supposed to meet with Orange this week to try and avert, quote unquote, try and avert a government shutdown. We also are hearing that to some extent, the House could be like, especially because of the delay of swearing in of the representative out of Arizona. What's her name? Adelita. Forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. Adelita Grijalva. So we already know that would give the House the 218th vote necessary to force the passage of the vote, the Massey Kana bill, to produce those Epstein files. And they're just like anything on earth, even up to and perhaps including a government shutdown to try and postpone and avoid that. But I want to take a look at that. But I don't want to say more importantly, because certainly the Epstein files are extremely important, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But as this relates to what we now see happening in Portland, and Portland is quite interesting because what we have seen in terms of this militarization of cities has been up until now targeting primarily black and brown cities with black or brown mayors, right? We know that that's been the agenda. Portland was a swing in another direction. I want to take a look at that and see, you all, what Orange's real agenda is about that. And I'm not getting that it is what a lot of news sources and media resources are reporting, which is that it's another part of his retribution agenda, that because Portland was a major factor in response to the George Floyd situation some years ago and the protests, and they set fires, that now, 5 years later, he's still claiming that, and they're saying that it's his retribution against them, and saying, it's a war zone and all of that. I don't think so, you all. I think it has more to do with following through on their promises to go after left-wing voters, organizations, etc. And certainly Portland is a very, in terms of a very progressive city, it's a standout example of that. I get the sense that that's really what this is about, preparing what could happen next year, or what they want to happen, to try and tamp down the free and fair election process. But let's get into it, you all. So first, government shutdown. Spirit, are we headed for a government shutdown this week? Will there be an agreement reached, or will the government actually shut down? Will the government shut down this week? All right, let's see what comes. Got the High Priestess on the bottom of the deck with the Sun card. I'm not going to ignore that, and the Ace of Swords. All right, so the High Priestess says they're trying to negotiate some things, because we know that on the Democratic side, they're fighting for health care, right? They're saying you've got to do something to fund health care. And of course, on the GOP side, they're talking about adding on another $1 billion for lawmakers' security, right? So like, how is that even making sense? There's some things happening behind the scenes that they want to work out a deal, but they don't know how to sell it yet. They don't know how to, because by all means they don't want to appear to cave to the Democrats and approve this extension of funding. But will they have to do that? We have the Sun saying lives are at stake. And I'm getting, because there's an Ace of Swords. I'm sorry, I held that up upside down. There's an Ace of Swords that comes with it. I'm feeling like there's a really good chance that this might happen, you all, or that there will be a last minute revelation of some sort. I'm going to go a little deeper. It is on a razor's edge. There's the Five of Swords. There's an inability to come to an agreement, because Orange is not going to want to be seen at all in any way, shape, form, or fashion of caving to the Dems and approving this funding, right? At the same time, they want to appear at all times successful and in charge. Will the government shut down, Spirit? Please give me a definitive image, depiction. There's a Seven of Pentacles. Because the deal was, I think, to try and find a way to delay it at least through, I think, the end of November, to try and Pentacles is that money. So how can they rather come up with a plan to say, just buy us enough time to reevaluate. If you'll play ball with us, Dems, if you'll play ball with us, we will take the additional time and reevaluate your demands and your requests. Will the government shut down? Ten of Wands. They don't want that smoke, because they recognize that their attempts to draw the narrative around, if a shutdown were to occur, that it is by all means on account of the Democrats. And they recognize that burden is ultimately on them. That the Democrats have done, a decent job, and will certainly do more in the coming days of getting that story out there. Listen, you all, we did everything we could, and this is on MAGA. This is on the MAGA base for supporting this man. This is on his people who have bent the knee to him, the lawmakers who have bent the knee to him, Speaker Johnson and Thune. Big load for them to carry. And we've got the Queen of Pentacles who comes in. That's interesting. I don't know who that is. Maybe some of you might have an idea, but it almost feels like there's somebody who tries to talk some sense into them, and I'm wondering if that's somebody behind the scenes who's trying to talk sense into Orange and say, look, this ultimately, if you really allow this to happen, man, you are going to get whomped. You are going to get whomped. Voters, all voters, even your MAGA base is going, because everyone gets impacted by this. We have the Eight of Swords. The fear, he is extremely afraid of having this backfire on him. Orange is. And of course, he never is going to admit to that or show fear, but he recognizes how high those stakes are. And he doesn't trust. And there he comes in the Lovers. He's a Gemini, as many of you know. And there's the Lovers. There's the decision that he feels like he has to make, that he's not going to want to make. I still am not getting clarity, though. I don't fake the funk with you all when I pull. You see the pulls. I'm not getting clarity. I now I'm getting the Three of Pentacles. So that does feel like there could be trying to work the deal, trying to work out something to avert the shutdown. And to some extent, he Orange is known for coming up with these 11th hour, workarounds. That is the intention. So thank you, Spirit. I've got clarity around the idea that they're going to go ahead and go full steam ahead on a shutdown, just for the sake of not having the Epstein files, having that vote take place around the Epstein files. They don't want to take the risk is too high for that. The burden is too great for that. So that in and of itself is not going to make them hold out and actually allow a shutdown to occur. There is a desire to work something out, but I get the gist. This Page of Wands feels like false promises. It feels like he's going to go and try to talk to Schumer and Jeffries to get the Dems, to get them to try and sell the Dems a message of work with us. We hear your concerns. Work with us. This isn't as bad as it seems. We will find something to give you, but there's a secret behind it. There's something that clearly they're not going to be on the level. But I'm not seeing anything that says a shutdown is the slam dunk. And then we have the Knight of Wands that comes behind it. I wonder if that's messaging that we're going to get from Schumer and Jeffries, who, listen, let's keep it real, right? They have not necessarily been these powerhouse representatives of the real, will of the people, right? They have not. They have had many, many failures. And we have the Hermit. That is around the healthcare issue. All things come back to that because that has been their primary issue in saying, you cannot do this. You cannot take away people's healthcare. There has to be funding for this, especially in light of all this additional funding that you're putting in. And they're going to cry broke. They're going to say there's just not enough in the pot to go around. That Four of Pentacles, there's not enough in the pot to go around for all of the other needs that we have at this time. Primarily funding militarization, funding this additional $1 billion now that they've requested for lawmaker security in the wake of CK, and you all know. We have the King of Pentacles. Who is that? King of Pentacles. And Strength. I think they may try and work a deal. They're going to try and work the deal. I am not seeing an out and out, shutdown. And if so, the price of that, they are aware of the high cost of that. And I'll tell you all, part of that is because, remember, if the government were to shut down, among the many, horrible things that would happen behind that would be the delay and pullback of pay for the military and their families and the programs and services of their families. Now, so you're going to do that at the exact same time that you are increasingly sending them into these different cities, including Portland. That is simply not going to work. There is somebody who's coming up. This is not him. I almost feel like this might be JD, because JD is a Leo ruled by the Strength card. Leo rules the Strength card and the King of Pentacles. And we know that he is really good at articulating, I'm going to give you the word Spirit's given me, articulating the absurd, right? Articulating the absurdity of justifying what it is that they're trying to do, this administration is trying to do. So I think we're going to be hearing more from JD this week as well, trying to advance and sell. I wonder, Spirit, is JD going to be in on that meeting with Orange? Is JD going to be in on that meeting? The Moon, I think he is. He's going to be sort of in the background of it. Clearly it's going to be Orange's show. But I think he's going to be in the background of that, and perhaps even having some separate conversations with Schumer and Jeffries. But again, think about it with justice. So think about it. The Moon can very often reflect things that are hidden. We have this the high priestess who came earlier about things that are hidden. It feels as if they're going to try and make, I'm hearing empty promises, just enough to hook Schumer and Jeffries to get them to buy in, and then figure out on the back end of it how to backtrack. We'll tell you this just to get you to go along and do what we want you to do. Will Schumer and Jeffries, let's look at it this way. Will Schumer and Jeffries, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, will they come out of that meeting this week and go back to their constituents and say, okay, you all, here's the best we can get. We're going to keep the government open. The devil. That's interesting. There's the temptation to do it. There's also, and the Three of Cups. I don't like this, you all, because the devil represents feeling chained to something, right? Many of you are readers, and I appreciate that you're with me on the channel. The devil represents things that you feel almost knowing that it's bad for you, knowing that you should not do it, but just feeling chained to it and bound to it, and like you don't have any other choices. And then we have the Three of Cups, which is a card of celebration, right? Are they going to, are Schumer and Jeffries going to come out of this trying to sell people that they did the best they could, and therefore, and there's the Nine of Swords. Man, oh man, oh man, are they going to be, they're going to be so stressed out about that if they feel like that's their only alternative, is to come out and deliberately try and pull the wool over their own people's eyes, the people who have their constituents, number one, and also they're supposed to be the leaders of the House and the Senate. And so those who are in the lawmakers in the House and the Senate, who know how high the stakes are, and depending on them to go in there and be their voices in that meeting. Man, and we have the world. This spells, I almost want to say this spells the end for them, for Schumer and Jeffries. If they do not move the needle in this meeting, you all, they're kaput. And they're already, people are ticked off, as you know. People are ticked off with them. They're already on the downward slide. But this could really be the end of them. And lo and behold, here comes the Three of Swords. Grief, doubt, disappointment. I don't know, you all. I will tell you this. I didn't get a hard and fast answer. But what I did get is, however this meeting turns out, if they avoid the shutdown, it will be because of that devil card. It will be because Schumer and Jeffries are going to sell something that says, well, here is what we're going to get. But ultimately, that's not what they're going to do. They're playing a shell game. With that moon and that high priestess, you can't believe a word that comes out of their mouths. And they may make any kind of, promises they feel they need to keep, to make. But they also recognize, Spirit, because, thank you. Spirit just reminded me. Because remember, we were talking about that the representative who won that election in Arizona, Adelita Gojava. And again, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing her name, but they know that Johnson has said he wants to wait and get the certification from the state of Arizona before he would swear her in, right? He hasn't done that with other people who've won special elections, especially if they're on the right. He hasn't had that, he hasn't taken that step, but he says he's going to do it with her. Why? Once again, to delay any vote being put on the floor and that passage of the bill to make them have to produce those Epstein files. Wow. Unbelievable. All right. All of this also tying into, if there is a shutdown, and part of the impact of that would be the pulling and delaying of pay to the troops. Meanwhile, you've got Pete Hegseth about to have this pep rally, they're calling it, right? Pretty much, right? Around his so-called warrior ethos. Pulling in, spending who knows gobs of money to bring in and basically do a theatrical situation, because we've heard that he is planning to record and release that meeting. So that was why he wanted it live rather than, even from a national security standpoint, do something via Zoom to bring all of the top brass, military top brass, and put them in one place, talk about a security risk. But he wants to do that because the plan is he's going to do this whole hoorah-rah theatrical situation and he's planning to have it recorded and release it so he can show he's big dog in charge of everybody, including the top brass. And as we know, the word is, if you don't get on board with this, you're going to be ousted, right? Now, you're telling people all of that, including the top brass, but also they're not getting paid. Spirit has said for a long time, you all, that some of the pushback and some of the downward slide of this administration was going to come from the military, both those who are currently enlisted and those who are retired. Some of these retired, 4-star, 1, 2, 3, 4-star generals who are saying this is deplorable, it's despicable, and it is not what we do as members of the armed forces. There was going to be a blowback from that, whether that actually meant somebody going in there and removing Orange from office, if it got to that extent. But this warrior ethos and them being demanded and a command audience for Hexeth's ego, essentially, for entertainment purposes only, that's what I'm getting from the guides, is going to just create such a in them. And then to not be paid, ooh, Spirit, are we going to see a military? I don't know if it's an uprising. There's a page of wands. It's already begun. There's a page of wands and the 3 of pentacles. It's already begun. Some of these top brass in the military have already begun to have conversations around this is gone beyond anything that we can do or justify in good conscience. But it's also, so how do we protect ourselves and how do we protect our troops without overplaying our hand and being perceived as outright defying this administration? And we have the Hermit. The work is being done, and it is being done quietly, and it is being done with a lot of emphasis on detail and analysis. They're going to push back. They are going to push back, and their strength. Because there is pride. There is tremendous pride, and especially among the top brass who have done, these are career military personnel who have worked very hard and truly have deep convictions about their role as leaders of the armed forces of America and who it is they're supposed to be protecting. So yes, there is a growing sentiment. That's why I think we got that page of wands, but it's still simmering and it's still in the planning stages. Now let's go to Portland, because you send these troops into Portland. Potentially they're not getting paid. Or even if they are, you've got top brass who are saying, we stunned and in disbelief that he actually pulled off this stunt to make us come and sit and listen to him talk about a warrior ethos, how we're supposed to exercise, we've heard, right? How many push-ups we're supposed to be able to do, and whether or not we can have beards. Like that's what's on the table right now. Man, oh man, there is such a groundswell is what I'm getting beneath the surface, like a groundswell of resentment that's building on the heels of disbelief. Thank you, Spirit. Spirit is saying, just as so many Americans have bit by bit, like I'm seeing an onion and layers being peeled off of the onion, come to a deeper and deeper realization of just how horrific everything that everybody thought, nah, it can't happen. Oh, surely somebody will step in and stop that, right? And then we see one by one these things continuing to occur. Remember when he was first elected, and militarization, whispers of that, and people were like, how's that going to work? How's he going to do? And look at what's happening now. Is it effective? That's another question. Because, where are the fires? Where are the federal buildings that are being attacked or set ablaze? Where is that happening? Right? It's so much of this is being fabricated, and they know that. And so they are there. Having them in D.C., we saw cleaning up trash on the streets. That's what they signed up for. And the potential, knowing that they possibly, they're at the whims of this administration, they may or may not be able to feed their families, right? But here's the thing. I'm going to come up clean. Let me reshuffle and come up clean. Two things. Portland is not going to buy this. And as we saw in Chicago, as we saw in California, in LA, there is resistance. But I'm getting, there are calls for nonviolence, of course, because the idea is that then you'll feed right into his plan to be able to say, aha, we told you this, so therefore there's a justification for doing it. Spirit, please show me what's going to happen in Portland in terms of how people will respond to this military presence. How will they respond to the presence of the military in Portland? What are we going to see in Portland? What is going to happen in Portland as a result of this administration's forcefully going in there and bringing in the military, the troops in Portland, in the city of Portland? What are we going to see? Ten of Wands. They've bitten off more than they can chew. Portland is no joke, and the people of Portland are no joke. It is known as one of the most progressive and active, politically active major cities in the United States. Not going to go. There's, we have the high priestess. Again, she comes. So they are going to try and sell the notion that it is a success, that continuing to fabricate and sell the idea that this is justified because their ICE facilities are in fact at risk there. It's simply not true. And we have the Knight of Swords. We will see and hear, this could be the mayor of Portland, but we will get very clear messaging around what the truth is and the reality of why they were sent there and the fact that they are not needed there. The messaging, Spirit is saying, be very careful right now, which I know everybody is, but being very clear right now and careful about where you absorb your news, who you're listening to, because there will be those who are out there to tell the truth and get that out, and then there will be those who are trying to not tell the truth, right? Portland. What's going to happen in Portland? They're going to stand their ground, but I think they're going to be wise about it. We have the Seven of Cups, which is the talk about, we know we're going to respond. We are not going to just sit back and pretend and close our doors and stay in our homes and pretend that this isn't happening. There is going to be a response, but we want it to be, we want it to not backfire. We don't want to give him what he wants, Orange, by going completely off, and letting our anger really out. And then he has that justification. We have the Queen of Pentacles who comes back. I don't know who that is. I feel like that's does Portland have a female governor? I'm sorry, I don't know that, you all. But this is someone in a position of power who is trying to help people make the right choice. We understand that you have to respond. We don't expect you to just lie down and take this. Respecting Seven of Wands, respecting that stand your ground energy, respecting that this is a city that takes pride in its progressive stances, in its belief and values around democracy and around freedoms for people. So she will, if that's a female governor, if that is who I'm looking at, she will speak to that and address that. And we have the Six of Wands. It's not going to work long term. This is, the people will be victorious in Portland, you all. The people are going to be victorious, but it is a process. Six of Wands is not a slam dunk. I'm not getting major arcana here, which to a certain degree I actually like, because major arcana energy says the stakes are even that much higher. And this, for me, coming in minors, feels like it's more along the playbook. It's more along this administration's and the White House's playbook. But the last thing I want to look at regarding Portland is we're being told again. A lot of the stories are around this administration. Orange is doing this because he's always on that retribution tour, right? And he wants, okay, you all did this 5-6 years ago, and so watch what I do as a result of that. A war zone in a place that's why we got that high priestess. What war zone? Where? When? So he's selling it. He's selling that message. But ultimately, we know that behind the CK situation, it's the left. It's the left that's promoting violence. It's the left that's doing this. It's the left that's doing that. And as a city that represents, geographically, nationally, a real beacon of liberalism and progressivism, that's why Portland has been targeted. To do that means they can justify next year targeting cities with large blue voters, progressive voters, active voters, politically active or activists, to intimidate them and cause I'm getting chaos at the polls and polling places next year, and sort of saying, but if you resist, remember what we did to you. Remember what we can do to you. Spirit, is this about the vote? I don't think this is about retribution, you all, for the George Floyd protests. I think this is about, rather than looking backwards, I think this is looking forward. I think this is all about their Project 2026. But let me see. Spirit, am I right about that? Is this situation in Portland and going after targeting Portland, is it a part of a larger view to disrupt voting in 2026? I'm going to pull a couple of cards and then I'll show it to you. It's about interfering. Man, the high priestess is busy today. Yes, but people aren't going to catch on to that. A lot of people, especially within the MAGA base, are not going to catch on to that's what they're actually trying to do. I have the Knight of Swords, so that's that messaging, right? It isn't about that. It is more about, we know what has happened in Portland before. We want to protect the federal buildings, ICE facilities, etc. That's the messaging. The Six of Pentacles is the troops going in. That's why we are sending in the troops. But we're not there. It's not as bad as it seems. We're not there to take over, we're just there to protect our people and protect our government, right? That's what they're doing. People are not buying it. This goes back to the military, you all, a card of disillusionment, dissatisfaction. So the attempts to not only put troops in Portland now, but to plan to do that next year, this goes back to the actual people who would have to, in uniform, who would have to implement that. And that is not what they want to do. And here comes the high priestess again, who's saying, in relation to the military, they are up to here. They are literally up to here. This is not at all what they signed up for, what they want to do, what they feel a certain sense of conviction about doing. They are not buying the lies. They're not buying the story and the narrative that they're being told. And we have the Ten of Pentacles that comes out ultimately as the outcome card. So when I'm looking at, the question was around elections next year, I think they're going to be outmanned, outpowered. There will be steps that are taken to alleviate that. Like already there are plans in motion. There will be machines that are better secured. We are already hearing things about what Musk might be planning and lining up, especially since we saw him sitting and trying to cozy back up to Orange and at the CK Memorial, right? So, but there's a countermeasure to that, and there's no better, stronger, more powerful place, perhaps, arguably, among many centers of democracy and activism in the United States. But Portland certainly stands out, and will stand out with that to resist that movement. All right, you all. Sometimes I just want spirit to just give me a blueprint. Just tell me point blank period. Here's what's about to happen. But I never get on here and fake it with you all. I know that this energy is moving in a certain direction. I do know with everything in me, and I think you do as well, that if we believe in something greater, then surely this has a timestamp on it. This whole situation has a timestamp on it. It has an expiration date. And I would love to be able to get to the cards and say, okay, tell me what it is exactly, like to the hour. But it just doesn't work that way. So I hope this was helpful in some way. Please send me your questions. Put your questions in the comments. I will definitely review the comments and get back to you. Meanwhile, you know how we do it. Chin up, chin up. Certainly the folks in Portland, right? Supporting them. Seattle has already come out and said we're supporting our sister city. We're going to see more of that around the country. Shoulders back, right? Know who you are in this moment. Know what you stand for in this moment, and refuse to be coward. And always, what helps you do all of that is by coming from your heart and staying in touch with your heart. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time, and take really good care of yourselves. I'll see you probably on Wednesday.